Hi everyone, today's build video is my build for the Diecast Mafia's Paint It Black challenge. For this I'm going to be using this 132 scale Arko 1949 Ford Custom Woody, which I bought second hand, hence you'll notice it's got a bit of wear and tear on it and it's missing a few pieces. I do really like using these diecasts by Arko because they're very detailed and they usually have a lot of moving parts. That does make these diecasts quite expensive, but I usually wait until one shows up that's been damaged and get it for cheap. Although I do that with all the model kits and diecasts I use to make my post-apocalyptic builds. I just don't really see the point in spending money on buying something that's going to be pristine if I'm going to be cutting it up for an apocalyptic build. My idea for this build is inspired by the Crusher from the Mad Max video game. Both are similar vehicles, although I think the one in the game is based on a 53 Ford mainline and I'm using a 49 Ford Woody. Firstly I start by disassembling the casting. And then remove the bumpers and lights by removing the tabs the inside of the casting, like so. Unfortunately, the tabs holding the headlights in are in a hard to reach place, so I try and pull them off from the front using my hobby knife, and it doesn't go as well. And I end up destroying the one light here, as you can see. I attempt to try and remove the other one off camera, and unfortunately it just shoots off and then just completely fades out of existence, as little parts tend to do. Next, I need to remove the rear section of the roof, so I'm going to do that off camera with my dual saw, but first I need to remove the glass. With the rear roof section now removed, we have a wasteland pickup, but I still want to remove the tailgate here, so again I'll do that off camera with my dual saw. Now I need to see what modifications need to be made so that I can fit this little Mega Constructs figure inside and use this in future animations. For this I'm just going to use one of the Call of Duty figures, since they're a little taller than the Halo ones. As you can see, he just about fit, but I'm going to need to trim down that bench seat because it sits a little too high. Initially I didn't remove the front seats because they were glued to the base plate, which I undo with my trusty sprue cutters. I then remove the seat from this interior section. And trim it down as much as possible. As you can see from the test fit here with the interior out, the figure fits in fine. I then reattach the engine bay piece to the base plate. Next I need to remove the bottom of the seats because the transmission tunnel moulded to the base plate will make them sit too high for the figure to fit inside. I then rotate the bottom halves before attaching them to the base plate. Next I fill the gaps in the back by using this by using this clear thin styrene sheet to cover them, measuring and cutting a piece to fill the gap. Next I want to switch out the wheels, so I loop my bits box and find these two from some previous Jada diecasts. I think the front ones are from the off-road Camaro and the rear ones are from the F-bomb Camaro. It's been a while since I parted those castings out, so I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure those are the cars I took these wheels from. With these new wheels I need new axles, so I make a new axle tube out of some styrene tube. With this blue tacked in place I can test fit and measure out an axle to be made out of styrene rod. As you can see, I'll need to do a little trimming, but this fits perfectly. I do the same for the rear wheels and begin to glue the new axles into place. Here's a quick look at the results. As you can see by the front wheels, there's a lot of empty space behind the wheel, so I've decided I'm just going to make some shock absorbers and put those there. To make the shock absorbers I use some styrene tube and some styrene rod. Assemble them like so. Next I work on the large mud flaps on the back of the car, as you see in the game. After digging through my bits box, I find these dub style wheels, which I steal the tyre from. Now I never really actually liked the giant oversized mud flaps on the original design, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to split them in half and put them on all four wheels instead of just the rears. I'm also going to add some L-shaped styrene just to act as brackets that hold this into place. Onto the double bumper in front, I remove the rear bumper and attach it to the front one, like so. And for the rear bumper I use this C-shaped styrene to make some kind of reinforced bumper. as well as adding some L-shaped styrene to act as brackets to hold it into place. Now it's time for me to attempt to make the crazy exhausts on the side of the car. I start with a front short pipe using some styrene tube, measuring and bending it into shape. And using my pin drill to hollow out the end. With this glued in place, I can then move on to the longer one. After gluing this to the underside of the car, I wasn't too sure it'd be secure enough, so I added some L-shaped styrene to the bottom to help secure it in place until after I'd finished painting it. Quickly off camera, I sketched around the seats and made a back panel, which I then glued into place, as you can see. Now onto the exposed fuel tank that most of the cars in the game have, and this is just simple video game logic. It's a red tank, you shoot it, it explodes the vehicle. For this I'm going to use this Tamiya 132 scale oil drum, though unlike in the video game where they mount it vertically, I want to mount it horizontally. I assume it's mounted vertically in game so you can shoot at it from the side, but me, I kind of want it mounted vertically so it's lower and hidden and less of a target. First I take some C-shaped styrene, just something to help it sit level while I glue it behind the seat. With the drum glued into place, I make some fuel necks from some styrene tube. And modelling where the fuel lines leave the tank for some extra detail. I attach a hole punch piece of styrene for the fuel cap. And then I model in the fuel lines using some thinner, small styrene rod. I usually don't model this detail, but considering how open this vehicle is, I figured it was worth the extra detail of adding where the fuel lines come from the tank. After this, I make some handrails for the passengers in the back to hold onto, using some styrene rod. I cut up some styrene tube to act as brackets that will hold the handrail in place. Here I make a mistake as I glued the handrails to the base plate of the car, as well as the bumper mounted on the rear of the body, which will make disassembling this casting a little difficult later when I go to paint it. Initially I was going to keep the front windshield as is, but I changed my mind considering this is a wasteland vehicle. It's kind of been rebuilt after probably being wrecked once or twice, and figured the windshield was long gone. Now originally this car didn't have headlights, which is lucky for me considering I broke them early on, but this is also because the Mad Max law is no one drives at night, because if you're driving at night your headlights will give you away for miles. But in my wasteland I kind of figured I'd give people the option, so I'm going to make some fog lights for the roof. So I take a piece of L-shaped styrene as the mount, and then add these Zane Industries overhead lamps, a 10mm circle and a 7.5mm oval. Next I remove the old exhaust the best I can with my sprue cutters. After this, I attempt to cover up the old axle that's moulded into the base plate using this clear 1mm thick plastic. To hide the front axle, I just add a skid plate, which is a part of the car that you put on to protect it from you going over rough terrain. I will weather this later by hacking it a bit to make it look like it's gone over several bits of terrain, but mostly this is just to hide the complete straight axle that I've mounted over the top for the front wheels. I then cut a piece of styrene and cut it down the middle to slot over the rear axle to model in the detail for the axle's differential. Once I get it into a position I'm happy with, I glue it into place. Next I make a new driveline, since the old one's modelled flat to the base plate. Again using some styrene tube and cutting about a triangle wedge out of the front so that I can mount it at an angle. With this done, I then take a drawing pin, remove the pin and glue it to the back axle to act like the differential end cap, which is the part you'd unbolt so you could check on the internals of the axle and stuff. And that's the basic detail underneath done. I know you'll hardly see this, but it's worth putting there just for the few glimpses you will get of it when I've got to use this again in future animations. Now onto roughing up the body. For this I'm going to use my rotary tool. I'm going to do this off camera because I don't want to risk damaging my phone or my computer with the metal shards that will be flying, as well as I'm going to be decked out in safety equipment, gloves and stuff, and it's just going to make it awkward to film. And here we are before paint. As you can see, I went to town with the rotary tool on this casting. Not too sure if I went too deep or not deep enough for the dents, since it's been a while since I've used my rotary tool. But I guess we'll see once we get the paint on it. I also added some rivets using some rhinestones, as well as bullet holes, although I think they're a bit too big, but this is the smallest drill piece I had. I did have some smaller ones, but I have a tendency to break them quite easily. Now off to paint. Start with a base coat of Revell Aquacolor Black, because again the challenge is to paint it black, which I then dry brush over the top of with some Revell Aquacolor Aluminium. This was to kind of show the body's being in a rough state, as well as trying to highlight those dents I put in it. I then paint the wood with some Revell Aquacolor African Brown, followed by some Revell Leather Brown for the interior panels. After that, I then dry brush in some Revell Aquacolor Sandy Yellow to kind of show that the wood's been cut at and hacked at, as well as the body's been damaged, just to show that the wooden panels have also taken their fair beating in the apocalypse. Following this, I do my usual rusting technique, in which I paint all the rusty parts with a base coat of Revell Aquacolor Rust, and follow that up with a dry brushing of Revell Steel or Revell Aquacolor Aluminium. Like usual, I skip the rest of the painting and just finish with a nice black wash to blend everything together and give it that nice wasteland look. And here we are with the final build, which I think turned out perfectly, although I did do a direct copy. I wasn't using the exact same car, as well as I changed a few things because of my own personal tastes. But I still think I got something pretty close and pretty cool based on the car from the video game. Unfortunately, this video is quite late getting out. I just ran into a few things and everything was going smoothly until it wasn't. So yeah, I had a few things that didn't go as planned, and then animation usually takes a little longer anyway. Anyways, if you've enjoyed my videos, thankfully everyone else will have got their videos out, so if you want to go and check out the other builders who took part in this, search Diecast Mafia Paint It Black Challenge. This is a monthly challenge hosted by BJ Customs and My Eye Miniatures, also worth you going out and checking out because they build some cool stuff. I really enjoyed this build because it's been a while since I've done a larger scale build. I've just mostly kind of stuck to Castlands most of this year. Hopefully I can get a few more larger builds done before the end of the year. But anyway, as usual, stick around for the glamour shots and the end animation. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.